Good evening. Tonight I wanted to talk to you guys about one of my favorite myths, Beowulf. Beowulf is right up there with Gilgamesh and the Iliad and a lot of other real famous myths and legends out there. And I love North culture. I love history. I really love Scandinavian culture and European culture during the Dark Ages, also the Middle Ages as well. Uh, this one's always just stuck with me. It's one of the classics. And for those of you who aren't familiar or need a refresher, Beowulf is about a Scandinavian who hears about a monster threatening another kingdom that's carrying people off, that's causing a lot of havoc. So he recruits a band and they go out and show up and then fight the monster who's named Grendel. They also end up having to take out Grendel's mother, and then he becomes king. And then many years later, when he's an old king, he also has to slay a dragon, and he ends up losing his life with the dragon. And the whole poem, as it's known, is kind of a salute to the great king, Beowulf, the main character. And what makes a lot of this scary, too, is that it's really vague, other than being described as somewhat human in shape, shaped like a man, is the monsters. What is Grendel? What is Grendel's mother? And for me, playing with these ideas, it lets you kind of superimpose what you think a big monster in a cage would look like. What would it look like living in a cave, carrying people off, terrorizing people? And the fact that we can kind of superimpose what scares us is really cool. One of my favorite retellings is from Michael Crichton in Eaters of the Dead. And his is very grounded, a lot more historically accurate than you would see in a lot of movies, and much more like, well, what would it really look like? And in no uncertain terms, he makes Grendel's mother, the monsters in there, like a relic hominid species, something like a Neanderthals that would carry people off and be pretty much the proto bad guys. And that really stuck with me, and that was always kind of the interpretation in my mind, because in the original sagas, Grendel is very vague, and Grendel's mother's very vague. I mean, the dragon at the end, everybody knows what a dragon is. But yeah, I really like Michael Crichton's take. The movie wasn't so great, but the book was incredible. It's a short read. I suggest you guys go read it. Another version of the story that came out, this one is in 2007. I saw it in theaters. Yes, I'm old, but I really enjoyed this movie a lot. The story is nothing like the book, really. They take a lot of liberties. The costumes, the swords, the equipment really aren't anything to what 5th and 6th century Scandinavia, what they would look like. But, you know, it's Hollywood. It's a fun movie. It's that early CGI, somewhat realistic animation. The movie's just a lot of fun, though. And Angelina Jolie is Grendel's mother, and she seduces Beowulf. It's nothing like the original, but it's definitely a lot of fun if you want to check it out. That brings me to the big question. Was Grendel a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot? If we look all over Northern Europe, especially Scandinavia in those areas, they have many, many different creatures, as all over Europe and Asia and pretty much everywhere around the world. But, you know, all sorts of different werewolves and giants and trolls and serpents and wild man of the woods and different water demons. It's just loaded with them. And for me, Bigfoot fits right in there. And I think it would be, I think, a 7 or 8, 9 foot tall, inbred, hideously malnourished, ornery, angry looking Sasquatch, 5, 6, 700 pounds, and that's a classic monster. And it really begs the imagination. Well, if this is a myth true, maybe there was a Sasquatch, and Beowulf and his companions went to go slay him and its kin, and then they came across the monstrous mother like a matriarch or a patriarch, and maybe that's how the story got twisted and passed down. You know, everybody adds their little twist to it, like myths and legends and oral traditions often do. And it ended up being a monster, the monster's mother, and then about Beowulf 50 years later coming out of retirement to fight a dragon. And what that dragon might be isn't really good question as well. And as I've talked about in the past, North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, pretty much everywhere, Africa, they all have their native traditions of different cryptozoological creatures, monsters, myths, and I'm always believed that they don't come out of nowhere. Whether you want to call them demons, the Nephilim, the fallen ones, who knows? Michael Crichton's theory about relic hominid species being active much, much later than we think. I mean, they're so spotty, and even if you think Beowulf somewhat recently compared to, when Neanderthals died out, it's still 1500 years ago, and bones get scattered, things get misplaced. Like you could have thousands of creatures or Neanderthals pass away, and very, very rarely are bone fragments going to be in the perfect area to fossilize or be preserved. Or if they are found, it's by somebody who doesn't know what they are, or they're just bone fragments, get buried in earth. Different human settlers, if they're in a cave, would move the old bones out, throw them in rivers, they're going to biodegrade. So I think every year anthropology is changing a lot. Out of Africa being challenged, instead of it being a straight line of evolution, it was a big tree with many, many, many different things coming off of it, many new hominid species, and how some of these species just popped up out of nowhere and died out, and the new ones came in. There's so many questions that, yeah, maybe there was some kind of a human like creature known as a Bigfoot here in North America, or something between Bigfoot and a human that was roaming around in Scandinavia and maybe was abducting women and children, which Sasquatch has been known to do, and eating people, which Bigfoot is known to do under certain circumstances. Not all of them, but there's good ones and bad ones. And you would send heroes out there, a king and his guard and whatever posse he could come up with, would go find these creatures. And I'm sure that they had a pretty good idea of caves or areas that people didn't go, so they would grab their shields, their helmets, their swords, and go look for these creatures. And maybe that's where the myth came from. I mean, who knows? It was so long ago. But the idea is always fascinating to me. I always like to think of our myths as somewhat based on something, and that kind of goes back to the Michael Crichton book. I think he did a good job. And in my mind, Bigfoot is a good facsimile for what Grendel, the monster in the woods, kind of like up there with werewolves and dogmans and demons and serpent-like creatures. It kind of all goes together of the classic myths that are found on every continent virtually. And I just wanted to share this with you folks, something to think about. And let me know what you guys think in a comment. And I hate asking for it, but please like, please subscribe. It really helps the channel out. YouTube's a weird place. So everything you can do to help out the channel would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. God bless, and stay safe in the woods.